I had been looking forward to homecoming for months, meticulously planning my outfit, perfecting my hair and makeup, and imagining the moment when my crush, Jackson, would finally notice me in a way that went beyond our casual school hallway chats. I always thought we had a connection. He laughed at my jokes, asked me about homework, sometimes lingered a little too long when we prepared for projects, but apparently, I had misread every single signal. When Jackson leaned against his locker that Thursday morning, flashing that easy grin of his that made my stomach flutter, I thought maybe today was the day he'd ask me. My sister, Sophie, walked in right as I approached him, a mischievous smile already on her face, and I froze. Jackson looked up, and suddenly my whole world tilted. "Hey, Sophie," he said, grinning. My sister, Sophie, the one who always seemed to have everything fall into her lap, leaned against the locker next to his and laughed, tossing her hair back as if this moment had been planned for months. "Hey, Jackson," she replied sweetly. My stomach dropped when I realized what was coming. "So, I was thinking, maybe you'd want to go to homecoming with me?" Sophie tilted her head, feigning surprise, but she didn't hesitate. "Oh, I'd love to," she said, and just like that, Jackson had asked her out, not me. I don't even remember walking away, only feeling my heart pound in my ears, my cheeks burning, my hands trembling. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Texting Jackson felt unbearable, seeing him with Sophie at lunch felt unbearable, every little joke he made at her expense that I would have laughed at earlier now felt like a knife twisting. I tried to act normal, but my friends noticed. "Are you okay?" my best friend, Mia, asked, concern in her voice. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied, because I didn't want anyone to know how humiliated I felt. That night, I scrolled through Instagram, seeing Jackson's post where he tagged Sophie with a caption that made my stomach sink, and I realized I couldn't even bring myself to like the picture. But it wasn't just about being rejected, it was about being replaced by my own sister, someone I loved and trusted, and suddenly everything between us felt fragile and off. I didn't know whether to confront Sophie, confront Jackson, or just retreat into my room and pretend nothing had happened. That night, I lay awake, replaying every interaction, wondering if I had misread him entirely or if something else was at play. And then I noticed something. Sophie's texts with Jackson had started the week before, just a few days after I mentioned wanting to ask him. I didn't snoop, I promise I didn't, but the messages popped up on my sister's phone as she left it unlocked for a second while charging, and my chest tightened when I saw them. Jackson and Sophie had been talking, planning, laughing at inside jokes I didn't understand, and there was a strange thrill in seeing my crush so engaged with someone else. It was infuriating, humiliating, confusing all at once. I wanted to scream, cry, anything to make the wave of betrayal stop, but I just sat there, trying to calm my racing thoughts. The next day, I decided I had to confront Sophie, quietly, without anyone else around. I waited until she was in her room, then knocked. "Sophie, we need to talk," I said, my voice shaking more than I wanted. She looked up, smiling, and something in me just broke. "About what?" she asked casually, as if the world hadn't just shifted beneath me. I wanted to say everything, all the hurt and confusion, but instead I whispered, "Jackson, why?" And suddenly I saw her expression change. Her eyes flickered, and for a moment she looked guilty, then she laughed softly. "You've got it all wrong," she said, and I felt my hope surge, only for her to continue. "I just thought, maybe you'd back off, and I thought he'd like me more if I tried." I stared, stunned, trying to make sense of her words. "Wait, what do you mean? You planned this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She shrugged, trying to make it seem casual. "Not really planned, just nudged it along. I mean, come on, you've liked him forever, and he's always staring at you like that, but I didn't think he'd ever ask. So, I helped him out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Helped him out. My sister, my own sister, had manipulated the situation to get what she wanted, and now she was standing there, smiling as if nothing was wrong. "Sophie, how could you?" I asked, and she rolled her eyes. "Relax, it's just homecoming. You're making it bigger than it is." But to me, it wasn't just homecoming. It was Jackson, it was trust, it was my own family's betrayal in a way I couldn't yet articulate. I felt the beginnings of anger, of hurt, of plotting. And deep down, I knew that this was only the start of something far more complicated than a single dance. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Jackson and Sophie together, the way he laughed at her jokes, the way she leaned into him, the way everything felt like it had been stolen from me. But then, in the darkness, a thought struck me: what if there was more to this than just Sophie's ambition? What if Jackson had been playing along, had known exactly what he was doing? The idea made my stomach twist. I wasn't just dealing with a sister who had gone behind my back, I was potentially dealing with someone who had been intentionally cruel. And that thought, that dangerous possibility, kept me awake for hours, wondering what the truth was, and how far it would go. The next morning, walking into school felt like stepping into a storm. Jackson was already there, leaning casually against his locker, Sophie by his side, laughing in a way that made my stomach twist. I kept my head down, tried to act normal, but every step felt heavy, every glance a reminder of what I had lost, or what I thought I had lost. During first period, I found my best friend Mia waiting for me, her brow furrowed. "You're acting off. Is it really that bad?" she asked quietly. I shook my head, trying to hide my frustration, but I couldn't stop the thoughts spinning in my mind. I needed to know if Jackson had intentionally done this, if he had been in on Sophie's plan, or if this was just some cruel coincidence. Lunch came, and I had no choice but to watch them sit together, sharing fries, their heads bent close as they whispered and laughed. I noticed Jackson glance at me once, and there it was again, that familiar spark, but it was quickly masked with a smile meant for Sophie. My heart thumped painfully as I wondered if he even realized how much he was hurting me, or if he did, how much he enjoyed it. After school, I lingered near the parking lot, hoping for a moment alone with Sophie. "We need to talk," I said again, my voice firmer this time, though my hands trembled. Sophie rolled her eyes but didn't leave. "Seriously, you're still upset?" she asked, tilting her head. "Yeah, I'm upset," I snapped, my anger rising. "You manipulated him, you manipulated everything, and you know it." Sophie laughed, soft but sharp, as if my words were a joke. "Manipulated? Please, it's not like he didn't want to go with me. He's curious, okay? Don't make it sound like I tricked him." I stared at her, disbelief and fury clashing inside me. "Curious? You don't just ask someone to homecoming to see what happens, Sophie." I stopped, realizing I had no words that could explain the betrayal, the humiliation, the shock that my own sister could behave this way. "Look," she said, suddenly serious, leaning closer, her eyes flashing with something I hadn't seen before. "If you're going to be dramatic about it, fine, but maybe you should watch your own actions first. Jackson isn't a prize. You can't just assume someone's going to pick you because you want them to. Maybe you pushed him too much without realizing it." Her words hit harder than I expected. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came. Was she right? Had I misread everything? Was I the one who had overstepped, who had been blind to the signals? That night, my mind raced even faster than before. I replayed every conversation, every glance, every laugh I thought was meant for me. And then it hit me, there was a pattern I hadn't noticed before. Every time Jackson had seemed kind, he had subtly shifted attention whenever Sophie was around. Little things, like a touch on the shoulder, a joke that included her name, a glance in her direction. Was he the mastermind all along, or was he genuinely unaware of the storm he was causing? I couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop wondering if I had been the naive one, the fool who thought her feelings mattered more than the games adults, or teens, played. Days passed, and homecoming drew nearer. Sophie seemed to glow whenever Jackson was around, while I felt invisible, erased from the world I had imagined for myself. Then, during chemistry class, I noticed something strange. Jackson and Sophie were whispering, passing notes, but every time my eyes drifted toward them, they stopped. It wasn't just homecoming anymore. Something deeper was unfolding, something secretive and tense, something I needed to uncover. That night, curiosity overtook my anger. I decided to check my sister's phone when she left it unattended, rationalizing it as gathering evidence of what was really going on. And what I saw made my blood run cold. Jackson's texts weren't just friendly. They were calculated, teasing, and oddly possessive. He had asked Sophie to homecoming, yes, but his messages hinted at an agenda I didn't understand yet. "See you tonight," one read. "Don't let her know we talked," another. The last one made me freeze. "I want her watching, but not suspecting. Make sure she sees me with you." My hands shook. Watching me with. Did Jackson want me to see him with Sophie? Did he want me jealous, humiliated, manipulated even more? I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't sleep. I felt trapped in a nightmare of my own making, unsure whether to confront Sophie, confront Jackson, or run away and pretend none of this had ever happened. And that's when I realized the game wasn't over. It had just begun. The closer homecoming came, the more I sensed that Jackson and Sophie weren't just playing a harmless teen dance game. There were secrets, intentions, strategies I didn't understand, and every interaction felt like stepping onto a trapdoor. I couldn't tell anyone, Mia, my parents, no one, because it would all sound crazy. But I had to figure it out. I had to understand why Jackson wanted this, why Sophie went along, and whether my heart would survive the consequences. Little did I know, what was waiting for me at homecoming was far more than a dance invitation gone wrong. It was a revelation that would shake me to my core, change everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and betrayal, and make me question not just my crush, not just my sister, but my own instincts. The week leading up to homecoming felt like walking through a fog. Every time I saw Jackson and Sophie together, something in me tightened, a mix of jealousy, anger, and confusion. I couldn't decide if I wanted to scream at them, confront them, or disappear entirely. Then, during one late afternoon, I noticed something that made my heart stop. Jackson had stayed after school under the pretense of tutoring Sophie, but I saw him slip a folded note into her locker. I had no idea what it said, but the way Sophie's eyes lit up when she read it made my chest ache. I wanted to rip the note from her hands, throw it in the trash, tear this entire situation apart, but I held back. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining the two of them planning some elaborate stunt, the cryptic messages, the whispered conversations, the smiles that weren't meant for me. I started jotting down every interaction, every suspicious glance, every overheard word, trying to find a pattern, trying to decode their plan. Then came Friday, the day before homecoming. I walked into the living room, pretending to casually watch TV, when Sophie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and quickly shoved it in her pocket, but I caught a glimpse of the message preview. "Don't let her know yet. Tomorrow will be perfect." My stomach dropped. Perfect? Perfect for what? My mind raced, trying to piece together what they were planning. Was it a prank? A confession? Or something worse? I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, but my instincts screamed that I wasn't. That night, I resolved that I needed to confront Jackson directly. If he was playing some cruel game, I needed to know why. The next morning, I waited outside the school, heart pounding, as he walked toward me, casual and carefree. "Jackson, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling. He smiled that familiar, infuriating grin. "Sure, what's up?" I looked him in the eye, trying to catch some sign of sincerity, but his expression was unreadable. "About homecoming," I began, "about Sophie. What's really going on?" Jackson's grin faltered for the briefest second, just enough to make my stomach churn, and then he shrugged. "Nothing's going on." "Why, are you upset?" "Upset? Are you serious?" I snapped, my frustration spilling over. "You asked my sister out, you've been whispering in secret, sending notes, manipulating everything. I saw the messages." Jackson's eyes widened, just a fraction, but then he laughed softly. Messages? You saw messages? And it's not like that. I just wanted her to have fun, to enjoy homecoming. I didn't think it would bother you. Not think it would bother me? Are you kidding? I thought you liked me. I shouted, my voice cracking, the emotions I had suppressed for weeks exploding all at once. Jackson took a step back, surprised, maybe even guilty, but before he could respond, Sophie appeared in the doorway, her hair perfectly styled, a smug look on her face. Everything okay? She asked innocently, though the tension in the air said otherwise. I turned to her, anger and betrayal boiling over. You've been planning this. All of it. She tilted her head, feigning confusion, and said softly, planning what? My heart sank. They were both pretending, but I could feel the game closing in on me, the two of them somehow aligned, somehow in on something I didn't understand. And then, just as the final bell rang, a note slid into my locker. My name written in Jackson's familiar handwriting. I ripped it open, my hands shaking. It read, meet me behind the gym after school. Don't bring anyone. You need to see this for yourself. My mind reeled. Was this a trap? A confession? A trick? I didn't know, but I couldn't resist. I had to know. After school, I crept behind the gym, heart thudding, every step heavy with anticipation and dread. There was Jackson, leaning casually against the wall, Sophie nowhere in sight. Relief washed over me, but then I noticed the other note pinned to the wall beside him. It read, don't ruin this. She has to believe it's all real. My stomach dropped. She has to believe it's all real? What does that mean? And then I realized, I was about to witness the truth, and it was going to change everything. Jackson looked at me, a strange glint in his eye, and said, I'm glad you came. You deserve to know what's really happening. I stepped closer, shaking, bracing myself for whatever revelation he was about to deliver. And that's when I saw Sophie appear from behind the corner, holding a camera, her smile wicked and triumphant. Surprise, she said. My heart stopped. A camera? A recording? What the hell was happening? Jackson stepped aside, gesturing toward the camera. It's not what you think, he said, but my gut told me it was exactly what I feared. Betrayal, manipulation, secrets, I was in the middle of it, and I had no idea how it would end. One wrong move, one misstep, and everything I believed about trust, love, and family would shatter. I stood frozen as Sophie adjusted the camera, her grin smug, like she had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Jackson's eyes met mine, and I realized he wasn't entirely innocent either. There was a mischievous gleam there that I hadn't seen before. And you need to understand something, he said slowly, stepping closer, this isn't about hurting you. It's complicated. Complicated? I shouted, my voice trembling. You invited my sister, you whispered behind my back, and now there's a camera? What is this, some cruel joke? Sophie laughed softly, a sound that made my blood boil. It's not cruel. It's a social experiment. My head snapped up. Social experiment? Are you serious? Jackson nodded. Think of it as a way to see how people react under pressure. I mean, you've always wondered if I liked you, right? And Sophie just helped make it real, so you'd see how much attention you get when the spotlight shifts. I blinked, stunned. Wait, you manipulated me, on purpose? To test me? Jackson swallowed, looking guilty but strangely proud. It's not what it looks like. Kind of. Kind of? I shouted, clutching my backpack. This is insane. You two, my own crush and my sister, have been planning this behind my back, just to see how I'd react? Sophie tilted her head, still smiling. You've got to admit, and it's fascinating. You never know who's loyal until they're tested. I took a step back, my hands shaking. Fascinating? Are you insane? Look, Jackson said, trying to calm me, we didn't think it would go this far. We just wanted to see what would happen if roles were reversed. You always thought I'd never notice you properly, so we gave you a scenario. I couldn't breathe. A scenario. My heart thudding, I tried to process what they had done. For days, I had felt humiliated, heartbroken, replaced, and now I realized it had all been orchestrated. All the whispers, all the notes, all the secret messages, it wasn't real. It was a setup. You mean none of it was real? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jackson shook his head. Some of it was, but mostly, it was to see your reaction. I felt a mix of rage and disbelief boiling inside me. Your reaction? I shouted. You treated me like I was nothing, like I was some experiment, some lab rat. Sophie shrugged, unaffected. You've got to admit, it's kind of exciting, watching someone you care about navigate a little chaos. My hands balled into fists. Exciting? You call destroying my trust exciting? Manipulating my feelings exciting? This is cruel. This is. I don't even know what this is, but it's wrong. Jackson stepped closer, trying to reach for my hand, and I recoiled. And, please, it wasn't meant to hurt you, he said softly. It just got out of hand. Out of hand? Out of hand? I thought, my heart pounding. This wasn't out of hand, it was deliberate, calculated, and I had been blind the entire time. I looked at Sophie, and she was still smiling at the camera, as if she were proud of the chaos she had orchestrated. I realized then that I couldn't trust her, or Jackson, not fully, not ever again. But then, Jackson did something I didn't expect. He stepped aside, motioning toward Sophie. Go on, he said. Show her. My stomach dropped. Sophie laughed softly, flipping a switch on the camera, and suddenly I saw the live footage. It was me, walking into the school hallway, the camera hidden in my locker, recording every interaction, every glance, every moment I had reacted to Jackson and Sophie's plan. I felt exposed, humiliated, like every thought I had, every blink, every gesture had been captured, catalogued, analyzed. Why would you do this? I asked, my voice breaking. Because, Sophie said, her tone deadly calm, we wanted to see the truth. We wanted to see how far you'd go, how much you'd care, what you'd do when the person you liked went to someone else. I felt bile rise in my throat. And, did you get your answer? I asked, hating myself for needing to know. Jackson and Sophie exchanged a glance, a brief moment of mutual satisfaction. Yes, Jackson said quietly. But it's not what we expected. I took a step back, my mind racing. Everything I had believed, the crush, the sisterly trust, the friendship, it had all been turned into some twisted game, and I didn't know if I would ever see them the same way again. And that's when I realized, the night of homecoming wasn't just about a dance. It was about truth, revelation, and consequences. And if I wasn't careful, I would lose more than just my pride. I would lose myself. Homecoming night arrived like a storm. I stood in my dress, heart pounding, trying to convince myself I could survive this without collapsing. Jackson and Sophie were already there, perfectly posed, Jackson's hand on Sophie's waist, her head tilted as if they were a scene from a magazine cover, and my stomach twisted in knots. I could feel every student's eyes on us, or maybe just me, but it didn't matter. I had a plan of my own. I had spent the past week replaying every interaction, memorizing every text, and now I was ready. I walked past them, deliberately making eye contact with Jackson, letting him see the fire in my eyes, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of power. Sophie noticed, her smile faltering, and Jackson's eyes widened just a fraction. I didn't stop. I found a quiet corner, where the music and chatter masked my presence, and texted a friend to help me gather evidence of their game. Soon, I had screenshots, his videos, everything I needed to confront them in front of the people who mattered. But I didn't want revenge, I wanted truth, clarity, and finally, the upper hand. I approached Jackson and Sophie, my hands steady even though my heart hammered. "We need to talk," I said, my voice loud enough for nearby friends to hear. They looked at me, surprise flickering across their faces. "And, what are you doing?" Sophie asked, her tone suddenly sharp. I smiled, holding up my phone. "Showing the world what you've been doing. All the messages, all the notes, all the little manipulations. I have it all." Jackson's face drained of color. "And, please, it's not what it looks like," I cut him off. "Not what it looks like. You've spent weeks treating me like a science experiment. You think it's fun to manipulate feelings, to toy with trust, to make me question everything?" Students nearby began to gather, sensing the tension. Sophie's confidence wavered, her usual smug grin slipping. You're making this a big deal," she said, but I didn't flinch. "It is a big deal. You made it one. And now it ends." I played the first video. It showed Sophie adjusting the camera, whispering to Jackson, laughing as if my reactions were entertainment. Gasps echoed through the hallway. Jackson tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back. "No. You both need to see the consequences." I played the texts next, the secret messages, the notes, everything. Jackson and Sophie exchanged panicked glances, realizing the scope of their actions. "And we didn't mean to hurt you," Jackson said, his voice small, for once vulnerable. "It doesn't matter what you meant," I said, my voice strong. "It matters what you did. You manipulated me, you lied to me, and now you're exposed. Everyone knows." The students around us murmured, some shocked, some whispering excitedly. Sophie's face flushed, and for the first time, I saw her fear. She realized that her game had backfired, and I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. Not revenge, but justice, clarity. Jackson stepped forward, hands raised. And I shook my head. No explanations. No excuses. "I'm done being the subject of your experiment. I don't need you, I don't need Sophie, and I don't need anyone who treats me like this." I turned, walking away, feeling every step liberating. The whispers and shocked faces faded behind me as I exited the gym, leaving Jackson and Sophie to deal with the aftermath of their actions. Outside, the crisp night air hit my face, and I finally took a deep breath. I had survived the humiliation, the manipulation, and the betrayal. More than that, I had reclaimed my power, my voice, my dignity. And as I walked toward my friends, who had been waiting silently to support me, I realized that the night wasn't about homecoming, or about Jackson, or even about Sophie. It was about me. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt free. Free to be myself, free to trust again, free to understand that no one, no crush, no sister, no friend, could define my worth. The night of homecoming ended differently than anyone had expected, not with a dance or a couple's selfie, but with a girl standing tall, in control of her own story, her own choices, and her own heart. And in that moment, I knew one thing: I would never let anyone play with my feelings again. I would always choose myself first. And that, more than anything, was the victory I had been waiting for.